Homelessness should not mean hopelessness. Learn more at projecthumandignity.org. A message from Utah Impact Partnership.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Ooh, ma.
What was that?
That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud phone system. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. We have emergency traffic. Here's Ricky Meese.
The closure is still in place eastbound on the 21st South Freeway at Bangerter Highway, where crews are on the scene of a fatal accident, still working to investigate and get that cleared. It is likely going to be in place for another 1 to 2 hours, so we're hoping to see the freeway open even partially by 2 or 3 o'clock. Until then, we have delays not quite back to 5600 West. Consider avoiding that spot and don't go past 5600 West. You need to use an alternate. When adventure calls, a new Murdoch Hyundai is the answer. Lease a new 2024 Tucson for only $365 per month or 3.99% for 5 years. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. It's a beautiful day out there. We're going to get almost to 80 degrees today and 82 for tomorrow. We will have some breezes kick up tomorrow, but the weather is just going to look really nice through the weekend. Right now it's 73 degrees and partly cloudy. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, things continue to ebb and flow in Israel and Gaza, now in Rafah. There's a lot of questions around the administration's actual policy and beyond the headlines of a lot of the activity going on in the region. Is the White House's approach to policy creating more clarity or more confusion? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Especially when it comes to international matters, clarity and certainty are the things that seem to settle the planet just a little bit better. But it doesn't seem that the administration is getting to that place of certainty or some very specific messages in terms of how they're describing what the policy actually is. Someone who's taking a hard look at that, Adam Cankren, is White House correspondent for Politico, and along with several of his tag team friends there at Politico, put together a great piece going through what the Biden administration is and isn't doing, what they are and aren't communicating, and how even for some of the Democrats it's becoming a little bit more of that confusion space. And Adam, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Boyd.
So let's dig into this because I think there's confusion across the spectrum. I don't care where people fall on the political pieces of all of this, but walk us through just from a communication strategy standpoint. Where are we, and is anyone ever really connecting the dots?
Yeah, it is incredibly and increasingly complicated, but at the core here is actually pretty simple. The White House is trying to balance maybe two things. One, maintaining its steadfast allyship support for Israel, both as a nation and also its offensive here into Gaza, going after Hamas. So that's on the one hand. And the second part is trying to convince Israeli leadership, especially Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, that in order to go after Hamas, he doesn't need to destroy all of Gaza. He doesn't need to completely flatten the area and take a greater toll on the Palestinian civilians who are in the way. And so that's kind of the two things that the White House has been trying to balance. Where the difficulty is that Israeli leadership, for the most part, is not really listening. And so the White House has had to try to exert what little leverage it has, among them arms shipments to Israel, while at the same time saying, look, we're going to be behind you in your defense. We just need you to conduct this offensive a little bit differently, a little bit more safely for those in the way.
Yeah, and I think that's been such a fascinating, even today, where you've had members of the war cabinet telling Benjamin Netanyahu, we need the day after strategy. What happens next if you do root out Hamas? Then what? What's the state of those, as you said, innocent Palestinian people? Is there a way for them to govern and exist? Does that move us towards a two-state solution and so on? Describe for us kind of your sense in terms of how the president is trying to navigate this within his own party, because clearly this is one of those issues where we talk a lot about where the Republicans are divided on things. This is one where the Democrats definitely have some differing opinions, especially in a critical election year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's terribly frustrating for the president and difficult. It's almost kind of a no-win situation. No matter what you do, those who are more sympathetic to the death toll and the toll on Palestinians are going to be upset about certain things. Those who are extremely pro-Israel, right, and feel like there should be very few conditions on how Israel conducts this war are going to be upset based on if you do something. So, and that's kind of the crux of the past couple of weeks here. There was a single shipment of extremely large bombs, essentially, that the White House decided to pause and not send to Israel last week. And the reason behind that was they didn't want them to use them in Rafah, the southern city in Gaza, where it would do a ton of destruction, and they just determined, look, it would be too significant of a toll for a densely populated urban area like that. So that was just one shipment. The concern that kicked up, especially among the pro-Israel Democrats, was that this was going to be a broader change in policy, a broader change in stance toward Israel and the U.S.'s support. And so there was a whole lot of confusion now over about a week about what does this pause shipment mean? Are there going to be more? Is this some kind of major shift in the war, or was it just a single isolated decision?
Yeah, it's so interesting. One of the things that I love that you pointed out in your piece with your colleagues was that from Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, talking about the fact that just the announcement of these kinds of shipments or these agreements or funding, being released to go toward, because in many cases, those actual shipments could be a year away or 2 years away from any kind of announcement. To me, that adds a degree of difficulty for any administration to make an announcement that, again, the impact may be months or a year down the road.
It really is. I mean, you have to be very precise with these things. It's incredibly complex. I mean, you're talking about the intricacies of defense contracting, essentially, and few people really understand that. I myself am only just learning from my colleagues on the defense team. And so if you're just looking at the headlines of, a shipment being stopped here and then suddenly now $1 billion more in arms going over, understandably you would be confused, right? Because it seems contradictory. But a lot of this is just, one, the kind of regular policy apparatus continuing, as well as that kind of clashing with the politics here of the White House in real time trying to manage what they worry will be a really destructive invasion of Rafah if Israel ends up going forward.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece of that puzzle. And I think one of the challenges for the administration is the fact that I think they've tried to do some of the, I always said in business, if you talk about things in sweeping generalities, you rarely succeed. But when you're precise, when you talk about things in specifics, you rarely fail. And it seems like the administration has been a little more on the generality side, support for Israel against Hamas, some of the generalities as opposed to some of the specifics. And it seems that is creating, again, more confusion than clarity.
They have, yeah. I mean, we've talked to foreign policy experts, foreign policy advisors to the administration, and the thing they've told us is, it's not like there's not a strategy here. There is actually a pretty comprehensive strategy. It's just that the White House has really struggled to articulate it in full. And so when you have these kinds of competing things of, yes, we support Israel, but also we don't want them to go about the war this way, and here's what we're trying to get out of them, and then you have to also consider the equities of Palestinians and how do you rebuild after the war. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that's happening all at once. And if you do not lay that all out in a simple, understandable way, obviously from a communication standpoint, you're going to run into difficulties. And that's what we're seeing here. Not like there isn't a plan. It's just that laying that out and making that clear to everybody at the same time in the same way is proving just really, really difficult.
Yeah, definitely. A great perspective. This is a great piece. Check it out at Politico.com. Adam Cankren, White House correspondent there. And Adam, always appreciate your perspective. And to me, this seems to be one where you have to go back to, you got to have a communication strategy that's as sophisticated as your policy strategy in order to actually get it all done. Great perspective as always, Adam. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Anytime, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Adam Cankren, White House correspondent for Politico. And I love the way they went about this piece because it wasn't into any of the this or that, or you have to be for this and against that. It was really about, look, where is the strategy in this? How's it being communicated? Because what you really want, not just within the Democratic Party, obviously the president wants the Democrats to be united on this policy, but I think in terms of just leading the nation and being strong with our allies and being strong against our enemies, you got to have clarity. And I think in some cases, the administration has relied on sweeping generalities. And in some cases, I think they've tried to please everybody. And we know that when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. And you don't actually advance the cause at all. So I think the communication strategy, again, does have to be every bit as sophisticated and robust as the policy strategy if you're actually going to be successful in the end. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Get the news.
Salt Lake City is looking to shake up the zoning of single-family homes.
And a deeper understanding of the news.
2 homes on what was 1 lot.
Feels like an afterthought, and I think it's going to feel crowded.
Tim and Amanda catch you up first thing in the morning. Then join Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson for conversation about the news middays. And Jeff Kaplan has the latest developments on your drive home. For news and talk, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Achieving the extraordinary, getting things done. That's the Utah way. And that's Brad Wilson. He delivered the biggest tax cut Utah's ever seen, keeping more money in your pocket. And on the Second Amendment, when others caved, Brad Wilson stood tall, enacted constitutional carry. Wilson stood up to the EPA, sued Joe Biden to protect Utah's energy industry, and won. And when others backed down on illegal immigration, Wilson didn't buckle. He banned sanctuary cities. In the U.S. Senate, he'd bring the Utah way to Washington, taking Joe Biden's agenda head on. That's why over 60 mayors, 22 sheriffs, and leading conservatives across Utah are supporting Brad Wilson for U.S. Senate, because Brad Wilson's the tested, trusted Utah conservative for U.S. Senate. Join them and thousands more supporting Brad Wilson at electbradwilson.com.
I'm Brad Wilson, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Wilson for Senate.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
It's time to take your adventure to a new level in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center. Hurry in now for our Memorial Day pre-sale and save thousands on your next travel trailer, fifth wheel, motorhome, or toy hauler. Don't spend this Memorial Day weekend sitting at home when you can enjoy the marvels of nature right here in Utah. With a full season of camping just ahead, right now is the perfect time to get into the RV of your dreams. We've even got clearance models at over 50% off MSRP. At Motorsportsland RV Centers, we offer real prices without hidden fees for freight, prep, orientation, or even propane. If you sit down with another dealer to make a deal and they start adding all sorts of crazy fees, it's time to stand up, walk away, and come to a Motorsportsland RV Center for a hassle-free, low-pressure buying experience. Come and see us in Salt Lake, Mill Creek, Spanish Fork, or at motorsportsland.com.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
Up to a 30% upfront bonus and 12% per year guaranteed growth for retirement. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and these are the highest guarantees with annuities I have seen in my life. When interest rates are this high, there are silver linings, and annuity guarantees are one of them. Up to a 30% bonus upfront for retirement income. On $100,000, that's up to $42,000 guaranteed in the first year. And it's because of the economy and its high interest rates. Don't let anyone, especially another financial advisor, tell you it's not true. Up to 30% upfront just for opening an account and up to 12% per year guaranteed income growth. Don't miss out. This won't last forever. If you have an old 401k, get up to 30% upfront and 12% guaranteed growth for income today.
Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Attention Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. GoPave Utah is a full-service parking lot paving, repair, and maintenance company servicing the Wasatch Front. Contact GoPave Utah today. GoPaveUtah.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, police are finding more fentanyl on Utah streets. Lower prices on the drug are making them more commonplace. Second, newly released census data ranks Utah at the top for housing growth 3 years in a row. Third, a major milestone for Dow Jones International Average, crossing 40,000 for the first time in history. Right now it's 72 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. We're a little less than 6 months away from the first Tuesday of November, which is the political equivalent of being light years away from the actual election. A lot can happen for sure. No one should feel any sense of certainty one way or the other based on any poll or anything else that's happening so early in the race. This race is in some ways kind of tricky to predict. There are some really unique factors in it for sure. And we're not going to dive into all of that today. That's a lot of the headline and polling, horse race kinds of things. But we want to get underneath a lot of the headlines and look at some of the dynamics that will be at play running up to the elections to give you some nuance and some perspective, some things that you might want to pay attention to so that you can turn out the noise and tune out all of the anger, fear, frustration factor stuff that's going to be thrown at you in a host of different ways. Someone who's done exactly that for us, David Graham, staff writer at The Atlantic. He actually has 8 dynamics that are going to shape the election. You can check that out at theatlantic.com. And David, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back.
So let's look at some of the under the headline things. I love that you got into this from some of the things that we don't always talk about, but things that certainly will get factored in terms of how that first Tuesday of November actually plays out. Give us a sense of a couple of those.
Well, I think there are a couple of things that I've been watching, and a lot of it is kind of thinking about the polls and trying not to read the polls simply as a head-to-head horse race question, but looking at what we see in there. and looking at sort of underlying dynamics. So one example of this is thinking about the sort of support that former President Trump has, which has typically never been lower than 40 or so, and not usually any higher than the mid 40s. So the question is then, where is Biden in relation to that? How high can Trump go, and sort of where can Biden push him down? So that's I think that's an example of the sort of places where I'm looking. Another thing that I'm thinking a lot about, especially as I look at there's a really extensive New York Times Siena College poll that came out this week, looking at the way voters are thinking about him and thinking about the status quo. When voters are unhappy, and as long as the election is a referendum on the president, that's bad news for him. And it's interesting because he was running as a candidate going back to normal 4 years ago. Right. And in some ways we are back to normal, and we see that voters don't totally love that.
I think that's so important that we always say we want normal. Say, but this we don't want normal. So I think
that normal.
Not that normal. I want a different kind of normal. And I just want to pause a second for our listeners, because I just want to emphasize what you're hearing of how David is going about this. So looking at the polls, there's the headline. Then he's looking underneath and saying, now what's really hitting that? So as he talked about the former president, often referred to as kind of the high floor, low ceiling is the way you described it in your piece. So that's something to look at underneath. Can there be some shift there? I want to get to one of the things you pointed out, David, which was about the economy. Always one of those things that polls very high in terms of importance. But what do you see underneath, and what might shape that moving into the fall?
There's really a complex psychology going on here. And there's been a lot of focus on this, people sort of looking at the economic numbers and saying, if you look at the top lines, you look at the fact that inflation has slowed quite a bit, you look at employment numbers, there's a lot of reasons for people to feel good about things, and they clearly don't. We saw this push from the White House a few months ago to kind of trying to own it and talk about Bidenomics, and that didn't take on, and you saw Democrats sort of, calling on Biden to stop talking that way because they didn't like how it was playing with voters. Yeah. I think it's interesting. One of the things you hear sort of, psychologists of the economy talk about is the idea that even when the top line numbers are good, even when inflation is slowing, for example, people respond a lot to expenses that are maybe smaller and aren't a huge portion of that, but that they see all the time. So, for example, you probably drive past a gas station every day or several times a day, and when those numbers are going up, you notice that. So even if the overall hit to your budget isn't huge, you really feel that in a way that you don't feel with some of the larger expenses that are part of the basket that economists use to calculate inflation.
Yeah, I think far too often the politicians talk to the American people as if they were economists, convincing them it's so good, but they're just consumers. And so when those numbers keep going up, we say, it doesn't feel so good to me. I want to get to another component. You talked about the kind of the nihilist thing, that there is a growing segment anyway that kind of likes the chaos and the upheaval, and many of them are profiting from it. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I mean, you see in polling that there's just a lot of voters who want to see major changes. They either say that they want to see big reforms to the system, and that's something that we see, I think, across the political spectrum. You have people on the left and the right who want to see major reforms. Probably not the same reforms, but if you ask them, do you want to see things change in a big way, they say yes. You also have a segment who says they want to just tear the whole system down. They want something else. And that's more pronounced on the right, although that also exists on the left. And I think that's a potent piece of the electorate because, we're talking about choices for somebody to oversee the system, and you have a lot of voters who say, I don't care about the system. So I think it's hard to think about that in an electoral context, and it's important to think about the sort of the future of our democracy.
Right. All right. I want to sneak in one more before I let you go, David, and that is the return of the split ticket. We obviously have some battleground states like Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan that are all going to be there. Are those places, again, they've kind of flipped back and forth between Republicans and Democrats over the last several presidential cycles. Is that going to be a trend where we do get more of that split ticket voting?
I think it's a really important thing to watch. And, I will say political scientists tend to be pretty skeptical of this. They say split ticket voting has gone down for decades now, and, voters are more polarized. We used to have a time when the parties had liberal and conservative wings, and now we have a liberal party and a conservative party, and so you don't have the same kind of thing. So we'll see where it comes out. But I think there's some places where we are likely to see at least some of that. You look at a state like Ohio, where Senator Sherrod Brown has a chance at winning, where Joe Biden almost certainly doesn't. And so there's going to be a split there. Or you look at a place like Maryland, where entering the U.S. Senate race, former Governor Larry Hogan, the Republican nominee, is the favorite, at least by a little bit, even though there's almost no chance that President Trump wins the state of Maryland.
Fascinating stuff. This is fantastic reporting. This is great writing. Check it out at theatlantic.com. David Graham. David, this is the stuff we always want to get to. These are things to be thinking about under the headlines that will actually impact how things turn out on that first Tuesday of November. David, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll have David back. That is great thinking there. And it's the discipline of getting underneath the headline and beneath the numbers. Say, what is that really telling us? And what should I be watching moving forward as a result of it? That's how you got to look at those numbers. David did a great job. We'll be right back. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's just about 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. The governor is addressing the chaos that took place at the Republican convention this year. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
Governor Spencer Cox says we can all do better. At his monthly news conference, the governor acknowledged the frustrations of voters, saying the results of the conventions don't match up to the statewide opinions, but that doesn't mean we should get rid of the caucus.
I love the caucus convention system. I believe in the caucus convention system. I always have. I think it's really important and unique. I think having an alternative path to the ballot is wise.
He says he would not support going to a direct primary system, and the way to fix ours is for more voters to show up. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
3 entities in Utah are getting more than $5.5 million combined to help prevent catastrophic wildfires.
A small portion of the money coming from a grant program made possible by the bipartisan infrastructure law is going to the Shivwits Band of the Paiute Indian Tribe and the Salt Lake City Fire Department so they can update their community plans to prevent and become more resilient to future wildfires. Carl Hunt with the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Land says most of that money is going towards a prevention project in Moab with a big focus on fuel breaks, which are designed for
when a wildfire does impact that area, that it slows it down and crews are able to catch it and keep it as minimal as possible.
Hunt says investing in fire defense now is actually more cost efficient than just trying to stop a major wildfire. This is the second year in a row Utah is benefiting from this federal grant program. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. It's 70 years this week since the Supreme Court's landmark decision on Brown versus Board of Education that found racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional.
It was the segregation policy at the public schools in Topeka, Kansas that sparked Brown versus Board of Education, the case that struck down separate but equal in public schools. 70 years later in Topeka,
we're all loved equally. It doesn't matter what race you are.
11-year-old Mackenzie Johnstone at Williams Science and Fine Arts Magnet, who says she rarely came across people of color at her old school district, like 7-year-old Jamari Lyons.
It's okay to be black and it's okay to be white. And you can still be friends and neighbors.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, a little bit of a mixed market. The Dow is in the green 24 points, but the S&P has lost 2 and the NASDAQ has lost 15. Coming up, we have a beautiful weekend on the way. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Mike Stevens and his team at Capital Wealth Advisors are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Don't let the ups and downs of Wall Street control you or your retirement dreams. Call 801-210-5500 today to schedule your risk analysis with Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors. That's 801-210-5500. Crashes happen. Question is, are you ready? Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Law & Order Thursday saves the best for last with a night of can't-miss finales on NBC. First on Law & Order, District Attorney Baxter's re-election campaign is on the line after a case hits close to home. Then on SVU, can Benson stop a serial predator before he strikes again? And on Organized Crime, Stabler faces an impossible choice between family and duty. The Law & Order Thursday season finale event, tonight on NBC.
Then stay tuned for KSL 5 News at 10.
Tonight on KSL, they're all over store shelves, contraptions that claim to help food last longer in your fridge. But do they do any good? KSL's Matt Gephardt puts them to the test, armed with a variety of food-saving bins filled with produce and left in the refrigerator for weeks. What went rotten? What stayed fresh? And which of these things actually helps stretch our food budgets? It's an inflation-busting investigation you won't want to miss. Keeping it fresh, tonight at 10 on KSL.
What does an Olympic venue, Memorial Weekend, music, food, canine athletes, and handlers celebrating 20 years all have in common? The 20th anniversary of the Soldier Hollow Sheepdog Classic, presented by Purina Pro Plan, May 24th through 27th. A glorious event set amidst the Soldier Hollow mountainside. Cheer on top dog athletes and talented handlers, dueling rugged mountainous terrain against the clock with agility and skill to corral the most insolent sheep in the world. 4 days, high-value competition, demos, music, along with delicious local eateries and vendors bordered in beautiful Midway, Utah. Soldier Hollow Sheepdog Classic, presented by Purina Pro Plan, performance nutrition that fuels sporting dog champions. Powder River, the authority in livestock handling equipment, and IFA Country Stores, for over 100 years helping farmers and ranchers grow the things they love. May 24th through 27th. Visit SoldierHollowClassic.com. SoldierHollowClassic.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. We have emergency traffic. Here's Ricky Meese.
And the closure is still in place eastbound on the 21st South Freeway. It is shut down at Bangerter Highway due to an earlier fatal accident. It's still not expected to reopen until about 2 or 3 o'clock. We'll keep an eye on that, and delays are still back, not quite to 5600 West. You do need to plan ahead. Avoid this stretch of eastbound SR 201 and take an alternate route. Box Elder County has gone to the birds. Spring migration is here at Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. See what visitors are chirping about with Box Elder County. For info, activities, and more, visit boxeldercounty.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, clear skies and highs around 80 degrees today and tomorrow. There will be some winds that will start to pick up tomorrow, and that will bring in a few clouds for the weekend, but it will still be really nice with highs in the upper 70s. Right now it's 75 degrees and partly sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're going to continue to try to make sense of the dollars and cents, especially as it relates to inflation and the impact it's having not just around our kitchen tables, but particularly in our small business owners is a crucial component to all of this that we often don't talk about. We talk about the painful numbers at the top end or how hard it is to check out at the grocery store. But we've got to get underneath that in terms of the impact that's having across the board, especially on one of those core engines to our economy and to our society, and that's the small business owner. Really thrilled to have joining us on the program Elaine Parker, Chief Communications Officer of the Job Creators Network. She's also the co-host of the Main Street Matters podcast, which I love. It explores the intersection of small business advocacy and public policy. That intersection has a bigger impact on your daily life than you can imagine. And Elaine, welcome to the show.
Hey, Boyd. Thanks so much for having me.
So as we look at the numbers in terms of where we are, in terms of inflation, just how much more it is costing us to do basic things, whether it's fill up the car or whether it's get that basket full of groceries at the store, those numbers are getting pretty high over the Biden administration. You've been taking a look at what's underneath that and how it's actually impacting our small business owners. Give us a sense.
Yeah, well, today the Consumer Price Index, which is our measurement for inflation, rose about 3.4%. And while that's just a number to people listening, for nerds like us who are watching it and talking to our small business owners, what that means is that on top of the high price levels that we have seen compounding over the last almost 3 years under the Biden administration and the economic policies and reckless spending out of the administration, we have officially hit inflation of 20%. So let me tell you what that means for people in real terms. That means that they have to pay $12,000 more a year for a family of four to maintain the same living standards as before President Biden took office. And I think people understand that when they go to the gas station and the grocery store.
Yeah, and when we start to do that, when we start having those conversations around the kitchen table where we're running out of money before we run out of month, that gets really real really fast. And one of the things that you all have pointed out is just the trickle impact of all of that. Whether I think you pointed out whether it was a turkey sandwich or having someone come fix your sink. We're starting to make decisions based on that sort of create its own downward spiral.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is hurting everyday ordinary Americans. For those at the bottom of the income spectrum, it hurts them the most, of course. And we're seeing the economy slow down in general. I mean, the GDP showed a big slowdown in the economy. We've got, as I mentioned, soaring inflation, and now we have a credit crunch because the Fed, in an effort to conquer all of this inflation brought about by the Biden administration, we're at 22-year highs for interest rates. And so many businesses, they just can't work in this inflationary environment, and they're unable to pass those price increases, at least the smaller businesses are unable to pass those price increases onto their consumers because their customers are so price sensitive. And so, if you're going to have to go out and pay, $15 for a burger, customers are just going to stay home and cook it themselves. It's just too expensive. And so, when you look at that small business owner, that pizza parlor owner, that, burger joint owner or dry cleaner, you name it, Main Street is hurting as a result of this inflation.
And I think one of the other components that you alluded to that I want to double back to, and that is the fact that the Federal Reserve has had to hold those interest rates high. That's also making it harder, especially for our small business owners, to access the capital they need to grow and expand and hire employees.
Absolutely, and that's such a great point because the credit crunch is hurting our small business owners more than the large companies. Large corporations can go out and raise capital so easily; it's not an issue for them. Small companies, small businesses, capital is their lifeblood. They take short-term loans to make payroll. Sometimes they take short-term loans to buy inventory. And when those interest rates are so high, assuming they can even get credit, it just takes a huge bite out of their already razor-thin margins. And so, like I said, they can't pass it on to their customers. And overall, people they're paying more and they're getting less.
Yeah. Keep going.
I was just going to say, it seems like the President Biden is just entirely out of touch with this. He was in an interview on CNN last week and claimed two things that were just eye-popping. One, he said that people have money to spend. He believes people have money to spend, even though it's costing people $12,000 more a year to maintain the same standard of living. And he claimed that he inherited high inflation. Now, inflation was at 1.4% when he came into office, well below what the Fed targets. The Fed targets about 2%. And so we were well below the Fed's target rate for inflation. The economy obviously we had lost a lot of jobs coming out of the pandemic. They were coming back. We had the foundational principles in place as far as low taxes, low regulations, low interest rates, and low inflation to have the fastest recovery on track. And on day one, the president came in and began a war on our fossil fuels and our domestic drilling by canceling that Keystone pipeline. And he has continued that war, which has destabilized the price of oil and increased the price of energy for everybody. And so it is the price of energy that has led to high cost of everything and the inflation that our small business owners are suffering under and everyday ordinary Americans.
Yeah, no question. And you actually must have read my mind, because I was going to say this is an area where the White House has really struggled from a messaging standpoint. I keep saying that they keep talking to the American people like they're economists when they're really consumers. And there just seems to be such a disconnect in terms of what they're saying or what they're trying to tout as wins for the administration, which is just so not congruent with what everyday Americans and small business owners in particular are living every day.
Well, I mean, the reality is that their best message that they put out there is it could be worse, and that just falls flat for Americans. And the other thing is they don't really want to talk about the economy for all the reasons we've just discussed. They really just keep talking about climate change and abortion. And unfortunately, those two issues, they don't fill up people's tanks and they don't put food on the table.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Elaine Parker is the president and chief communications officer, of Job Creators Network Foundation, co-host of Main Street Matters podcast. Check that out today as well. Elaine, great insight. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
All right, again, that's Elaine Parker from Job Creators Network Foundation. And this is one of those things, again, where we kind of dip underneath the headline, and it might sound a little wonky or in the weeds, but this is the stuff that's really impacting what you're able to do and the conversations you are having at home about what it's costing to keep and maintain the status quo in terms of your standard of living. And these are all things that just keep adding up and adding to higher and higher numbers that make it harder and harder, not just for everyday Americans, but again, you have to go back. I am such a firm believer in the power of small businesses in this country. It's been that way since the beginning. It is the entrepreneurs and small businesses that really drive so much in our society, from the jobs that they create to the products and services they produce and provide, and the impact it has on all of us. And when interest rates are super high, small businesses can't get access to the kind of capital they need to make inventory, to make payroll, to hire a new person, to keep those jobs going. That their costs and their margins get tighter and tighter as those costs continue to go up. And so that's why we have to focus on these things under the headline. It's costing more, and we got to get underneath. What are the levers of power that can be moved, principles and policies that will actually make a difference for all of us?
It's time for the KSL Give-a-thon.
We need your help raising money for sick Utah kids receiving treatment at Primary Children's Hospital.
Go to KSLkids.com and donate today.
Be a smile maker. An automatic gift each month helps save the lives of children all year long.
Sponsored by J&J Garden Center in Layton.
A big thanks to other generous sponsors, including the Utah Hyundai dealers, for their amazing support of the kids at Primary Children's.
The KSL Give-a-thon. We can't do it without you. Please give today at KSLkids.com.
So I'm just telling you the one question that never in the history of ever have I been asked about my soda weight loss journey. No one has ever asked me if it works. Why? Because the results just don't lie. As most of you know, I lost 37 pounds in 90 days. Those are real results. No denying that. I'm 2.5 years into the program. Guess what? This morning, 37 pounds down, never felt better. Real results. So the question that I often get asked as I'm out and about in public is, how does soda weight loss work? Well, it's in the name. SOTA, S-O-T-A, stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is. It's state-of-the-art. It's based on science. You have your own nutritionist and dietitian to help you every single step of the way so that you can get healthy, not just for now, but for the rest of your life. As I always say, when it comes to your soda weight loss journey, there's no time to lose, only time to win. So start winning today. Check it out at sodaweightloss.com. That's S-O-T-A weightloss.com.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah. They install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
At Progressive, we know how much you love your recreational vehicles, so we decided to record this commercial in an RV.
With a family on vacation.
Mom, who are these people?
Oh, that's Flo and Jamie. They're recording a commercial, sweetie.
Don't they do that in the studio?
Normally.
No.
But we wanted to feature a family who bundled their home and RV and saved with Progressive.
Yeah, it looks like you're all out of chips.
Okay, I think we'll just drop you off at the next gas station.
Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Save big this Memorial Day at Lowe's. Right now, save on 1.5-gallon annual hanging baskets. Get 2 for just $20. Plus, buy one, get one 50% off. Select interior and exterior paint and exterior stain via Lowe's gift card rebate. Shop these deals before they're gone, because Lowe's knows summer savings. Valid through 5/29. Hanging baskets in-store only. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Actual plant size and selection varies by location. Paint. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowes.com/rebates for details while supplies last.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
It's blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters. It's time to celebrate with family and friends with the newest and nicest luxury recliners on the biggest screens at Megaplex Theaters. Megaplex movie tickets are on sale now for the charming Imaginary Friends movie called If, or laugh along with the lasagna-loving Garfield movie, as well as the movie with all the feels Inside Out 2. Tickets are available now for the 2024 Megaplex 2024 Kids Summer Movie Series, including sensory-friendly screenings and special benefits for families on WIC or SNAP. Details at MegaplexTheaters.com. Celebrate blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters.
Progressive presents 10 things on a plumber's to-do list that are harder than getting a small business insurance quote. Waking up for 5 a.m. plumbing disasters, finding out why water is pouring from the ceiling, replacing a pipe in a home from the 1800s, then dealing with invoices or your awkward apprentice or that really weird smell, and then there's breathing and eating and, of course, clogs. But the easiest thing on any small business owner's to-do list? Seeing if you could save on the business insurance that's right for you. Get a quote in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house, whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed. Call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, Governor Cox speaking today on the caucus issues and said the way to fix our system is for more voters to show up. Second, 3 entities in Utah are getting more than $5.5 million combined to help prevent catastrophic wildfires. Third, it's 70 years since the Supreme Court's landmark decision on Brown versus Board of Education that found racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. Right now it's 75 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out hour number 1 of the program, we often say on this show that words have meaning and the meaning matters. We also talk a lot about how important tone can be. And expressing that tone is getting increasingly difficult as we have fewer and fewer in-face personal conversations. And someone who's taken a dive at what's happening with new punctuation in Gen Z, how we can better understand some of that tone, is Adam Alexic. And Adam, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey, this is a great piece in the Washington Post. And just start walking us through here in terms of the tone component has become the real challenge. And I will first confess my own sins here that I am just pretty much a winky face emoji guy, and I realize I've now bleached all the meaning out of that. And so, tell me where we really are, what we need to understand about the emojis as a tone setter.
Yeah, well, like you said, going online, we lose the ability to convey a lot of the tone that we can do in person. Obviously, we have body language, we have the vibe in the moment, and yet online, things can read as sarcastic. You're not sure what the tone is, and so that's where emojis come in. With the implementation of the emoji keyboard in 2011, we've been able to really express through our statements a certain sense of tone by adding an emoji at the end. And this is where the distinction between tone and punctuation and emojis all gets kind of blurred. They're all kind of the same thing, and there is no really one set definition here. But yeah, so for a while, people were using, say, the laughing, crying emoji to express the idea of laughter. And where I dive into my article is that the meaning of the laughing, crying emoji has shifted over time as more and more people use this just as a tone indicator to indicate, yes, I'm using a lighthearted tone. The meaning shifted from just being laughing to now just being a general sentiment of positivity, right?
Yeah.
And so over time, we're seeing a lot of younger people who are online more use different emojis to communicate the idea of humor or comedy. So we've seen the crying emoji replacing the laughing crying emoji, and now we're seeing the skull emoji replace that. So we're kind of stuck in this cycle of people increasingly using emojis more and more to show that both laughter, and that turns into a tone tag where the meaning gets bleached. That's the term for it.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it's so interesting as you pointed out in the piece that that just regular old punctuation is just simply not sufficient anymore. Who would have thought that a question mark or a period or an exclamation point would somehow no longer be able to convey tone? I think is just such a fascinating thing.
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of the shift from formal speech to informal speech in writing. Before the internet, most people, when they were writing something, they were trained to do it in formal writing. Even like letters and stuff was still a formal tone. Now that we're online, we've abstracted kind of our informal slang to the online space, and we're writing in slang, which is generally a new thing, and we have more of a need for this, which is why emojis are such a perfect solution.
Yeah, and so how do you see that playing out moving forward? Obviously, it's important for older folks, people older than Gen Z, to look at how those things are playing out. But how does that manifest in terms of communication that we're having, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's at a business, whether that's in our community?
Yeah, I think it's a context-dependent thing, right? So we're not going to be seeing people using emojis in academic essays. It's a kind of code switching that people learn how to do on this certain platform. And academic essays are still formal writing where we have more of a set kind of way to convey tone in that style. For the informal writing, people will be using this more in interpersonal communication. They'll be using it more online. And especially for the people who are constantly online, emojis will be constantly shifting meaning, constantly taking on new nuances that older generations will struggle to keep up with.
Yeah, no question about that. I do want to go back to this whole idea that you pointed out in the piece of this semantic bleaching, that we have seen that just in words in and of themselves. They kind of get watered down over time, and then they get replaced by something that's maybe newer or a little more edgy. There's obviously an acceleration with emojis doing that. How do you see that just impacting language overall?
Yeah, I think so. Semantic bleaching, again, is this process of words becoming less intense over time. The way literally now no longer means literally. And this is a process that's been going on for a while. I mean, the word very used to mean truthfully, like verily, and that's been bleached to just mean be an intensifier. But yes, the internet, as you mentioned, is absolutely, I think, accelerating this process. It's giving words a medium to be used quicker, meanings to change faster. And I think in this new online space where things are very tied to trends and social media, we're only going to see like an acceleration of how quickly things spread.
Great. So this is a fantastic piece. Check this out at thewashingtonpost.com. Adam Alexic, Gen Z linguist and content creator there at the Post. And again, this is just a great piece. And Alex, I am going to give you I don't know if you get a double word score or a triple emoji score for calling out the example on literally, because literally that is my wife's pet peeve is the use of literally. And so thanks for calling that out today as well. This is all
right, thanks. I'll respond to that with a skull emoji.
There we go. Got it. Done and done. That's Adam Alexic, and just a great piece. And it is fascinating to me to just look at all of this as someone who loves words and trying to figure out how we communicate, whether that's verbally, whether it's in writing. Now, of course, through texting and email, we have all of these different things that are adding complexity to how we convey that meaning. And then what happens over time is just going to be interesting. I think the fact that a few people can put together a meaningful letter. I was actually having a conversation earlier today with some folks, and I just said, look, if you want to understand what you really think about something, write it down, and write it with a pen. We've been talking about that this week. It's just a different thing than sending a text message to someone about what you think about a particular issue, and you can use all the emojis you want. You still won't really know what you think about a particular issue, whether it's a political issue, a business issue, a family crisis issue, whatever it may be. And so we have to get back to that. Use the technology. It can be convenient. It can be efficient. But it's got to be effective. You got to stay at a different level of communication. And not even the skull emoji is going to get you out of that, or the guy with the cowboy hat or the sunglasses. It may not fly. All right, that wraps it up for us for hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We're going to step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We got a big hour number 2 coming up. We're going to start with a fascinating piece in the New York Times about being a kin keeper. It's a good one. You don't want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. The prosecution rests today in the trial of Chad Daybell. KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas says we already have a pretty good idea of what the defense will do next.
I know they have a medical examiner that's going to question the way Tammy's body was exhumed, the findings that were found there, and they're going to challenge the fact that that is a homicide when it was first announced to be an accidental cause of death, natural causes. So I think they're going to attack some of the state's forensic evidence as it relates to the cause of death of all three of the people that Chad's accused of killing.
Greg tells us he expects the defense to take less than a week to present their case. As the weather warms up, many people head to the water for summer fun. However, the chief of law enforcement with the Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation, Steve Bullock, tells David Dujanovic you need a life jacket and knowledge of it before heading out.
The rules for life jacket wear in Utah is if you're on a lake or reservoir, anyone 12 and under has to wear a life jacket the entire time they're on the boat. If you're over the age of 12, you have to have a life jacket available for each person.
Bullock says life jackets with zippers are not appropriate for many situations. You need to have one with buckles. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. An emergency has been declared in Hawaii because of days of heavy rain slamming the islands. ABC's Alex Stone reports.
Honolulu has activated its emergency operations center because of what's known as a Kona low, a low-pressure system to the north that's dumping tons of rain on the islands with more to come. A flash flood watch is in place for the island of Oahu through Friday. Some areas could get 10 inches of rain. Those on the islands are being told to expect bands of heavy rain into the weekend. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, things have made a little bit of a change. The Dow has dropped 38 points. The S&P has lost 11 points, and the NASDAQ is off 44 points. Coming up, it's starting to feel a little bit like summer. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:02.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Les Olson IT structured cabling is second to none. Tired of old and inefficient cabling? Have an upgrade or remodel planned? Building a new network from the ground up? We offer the very best in low-voltage cabling installation, including data, phone, fiber optic, and more. Ask us how to get your free consultation today.
Les Olson IT.
put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Stephanie Palmer at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email spalmer@ksl.com. That's spalmer@ksl.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
Some very good news for anybody who's been sitting in these delays on the 201. Eastbound traffic on the 21st South Freeway now open. The freeway had been shut down for several hours at Bangerter Highway, but once again, all lanes are open to travel. You are good to go. The UACPA supports certified public accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development. Find a CPA that works for you, uacpa.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we have a beautiful weekend in store. Starting today, we'll get up to 80 degrees, sunny skies. Tomorrow, 82. It will cool off slightly, but not much, hovering in the high 70s for Saturday and Sunday. Right now, it's 76 degrees and sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're going to go off the beaten path just a little bit as we start hour number 2 of the program. Last week I had the conversation with our good friend Brooke Walker from Studio 5 on KSL 5 TV, and she actually pointed me to a piece I had missed in the New York Times about a really important word that I actually did not know. We often talk about the connective tissue in society, in organization, in community. And we're going to look at that connective tissue and those key connectors in just a little different way. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
It's time for a new word of the day for you, and really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Danielle Friedman, award-winning freelance journalist, and just has a fantastic piece in the New York Times. The constant work to keep a family connected actually has a name. And Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
This is a fabulous piece. So we always talk about this connective tissue, and we often don't talk about the people who do the hard work and heavy lifting of keeping things connected. You found it. There's a name for it.
That's right. The name is being a kin keeper, doing the work of kin keeping. And while it can be very gratifying and joyful work, make no mistake, it is work to help keep families connected, especially in this age of, geographical distance.
No question about it, and it is, and I think every family has someone who does it naturally, but sometimes I think we just let them do it by default because we know they will. But there is a lot to it. But I want to get underneath that just a little bit in terms of what drove you into this space to explore this, because I think that matters.
Yeah, well, I'm very interested in looking at burnout, particularly among women and mothers. I myself am a working mother of 2 young kids, trying to prioritize family and all of the other obligations. And so when I learned that there was a name for this particular type of, what's often invisible work, there was something that just felt really kind of validating, and to think of it as a sort of defined specific role, and the work of kin keeping as a verb, as something that we actively do that has value and meaning. And it also made me think about, the kin keepers in my family and the ways in which this type of work and this role gets passed on through generations.
Yeah, and it does go through generations, doesn't it? Yeah, as you see those people who play that particular role, often referred to as kind of the glue that keeps the family together.
Yeah.
Give us some examples of how you've seen that play out.
Yeah, so the family kin keeper, just to further define it, is the person who largely plans family get-togethers and reunions, carries on traditions and rituals. That's a new word, traditional, and including meals that are served at like holiday dinners. They know everyone's address. They buy presents, and they generally take on the responsibility of making holidays and special occasions feel magical for kids and family members. And historically, the role really has been held by women, and kind of passed on from family matriarch to matriarch. And it's really interesting to see what happens. And in part, the story got something like 500 comments, and people were sharing all of their various experiences. But when the family kin keeper either passes away or just stops kind of doing that work, families really do feel the effects, and there can be kind of a drifting effect that happens.
Yeah, that disconnect becomes so real. I have to give a shout out to the kin keeper of my children, my son McKay, and that may sound like a pretty easy thing, but my wife comes from a family of 9 children. I come from a family of 11 children, but my son McKay, out of all of those, just the siblings of my wife and I, those aunts and uncles, that's a big number. And then he has over 100 first cousins. And he took a year, and he hit every single birthday, sent every single person a message.
Wow!
So as I was reading that piece, I was thinking, "Oh my gosh, McKay did this for our for our family." But it's amazing what the kin keeper impact is, because I think it's even more than just the gathering. To me, there's also just this sense of someone's watching out for the family that I think goes along with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it gets right to the core of what is family, what is the value of family, and of knowing that we have this emotional support network, both in our nuclear families and then in our extended families. And actually, another aspect of this role that came up was the role that kin keepers can play when it comes to health, both in terms of sort of being a repository for and disseminating information about medical history, and also if a family member is ill or needs help, being the person to help coordinate care and showing up and making sure that gets done. So it can serve a really, important practical purpose as well.
Yeah, there is that practical, tactical component to all of it. Just the coordinating of some of those things. I love in your piece in the Times where you talked about the fact that the quality of relationships is usually built on some pretty small and seemingly insignificant moments, but kinkeepers seem to understand how important those small moments are and the big impact they can have.
That's right. And, I think it can be really easy to maybe look at the kinkeeper in your family or someone who is doing kinkeeping work and saying, do you really have to bake the cookies from scratch? Do you really have to handwrite all the thank you notes? And say, especially if the kinkeeper is starting to seem, feel stressed or burdened, which can also happen.
Yeah.
But, so many people talk to me about how, the cookies aren't just about cookies. It's tapping into a memory from their own childhood that has provided them with a sense of well-being in adulthood, maybe of baking with a family member, and they're now trying to pass that on to their own children. And just so much research has shown that when we invest in our relationships, in rituals, our mental health benefits.
Yeah, this is such important stuff that we often can just skip across the surface on. And Danielle, we appreciate you sharing it with us. Everyone should go check that out at the New York Times. A fantastic piece there. And Danielle, we look forward to having you back. I love the way you go about your work, the way you write, the way you think. We know great writing starts with great thinking, and usually it's tied to a memory or a connection. And kinkeeper will be our word of the day today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Again, that's Danielle Freeman. Just a really great piece. Everybody ought to read that. And you got to do two things today as a result. You got to thank the kinkeeper in your life, and you may have several within your family. Maybe one with your nuclear family, or two with your extended family. And we also have kinkeepers in our community. We have some extraordinary ones here in our state and in our area. And so make sure you thank the kinkeepers because they do a lot of that hard work and heavy lifting that keeps us connected, that keeps us in community. That's so important for how we all move forward together. Great stuff. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. There's no debate.
Biden's opting out of this fall face-off at the U.
You'll get the most insightful coverage of this historic election year from KSL. All news and breaking updates in the morning and afternoon. Talk and analysis with David Dejanovic and Boyd Matheson during the day. Your voice, your vote 2024 on KSL News Radio.
Cindy Olsen here. My friends at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo are having a big spring sale, so you can get her the sewing machine that she dreams of. Whether it's for mom, sister, daughter, or the new graduate, the perfect gift for her is at Dave's Bernina. Come in now. The more you spend, the more you will save, such as $200, $500, and even $1,000 discounts when spending $2,000 to over $10,000 on Bernina sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines. Burnett machines start at $199 and take $900 off the Bernina $435, only $1,499. Featuring for a limited time, 2.99% finance offer for 60 months on certain machines, 25% off all luggage and big sewing books. Hurry in for amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties. Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
A fiduciary has the regulatory obligation to put your best interest first. Trajan Wealth is a financial fiduciary for your investments. With Trajan Wealth, the more you make, the more we make. Our interests are aligned. Most other financial advisors are brokers held to a lesser standard and are paid an upfront commission to sell you something. Call Trajan Wealth 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
You know, Deb, you and I have had this conversation so many times. We think, oh, I wish I had a little more light here or maybe a ceiling fan there.
That's why we love Master Electrical. So anytime we have an electrical problem, we know we can call them and they will give us their upfront pricing guarantee.
Because we're not going to do it yourself. We're going to leave it to the professionals. And this upfront pricing guarantee is fantastic. I'm sure you've been bitten by bids in the past where they say, oh, that's going to take half a day. And then 2 weeks later, The bid and the invoice have nothing to do with each other.
Not only will you get their upfront pricing guarantee, but you will never see an upcharge. Their pricing system simply won't allow it.
Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santaquin.
They do everything that has to do with electrical, and they're always open, including for emergency services. The phone number to call is 801-543-2222.
801-543-2222, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Spring is a great time to elevate the look of your home and landscape by adding beautiful flowers to the yard and patio. And pros and hobbyists alike know that the best flowers are grown by Olson's Greenhouse, right here in the mountain valleys of Utah. This is Brian with Olson's Greenhouse, and my family has been growing flowers with love and care for over 80 years. That's 4 generations of a local, family-run Utah business. So whether you're looking to add a pop of color to the back patio or a beautiful flower bed to the front landscape, flowers from Olson's Greenhouse are the perfect finishing touch to make your yard a joy to relax in. Stop by ogg.com or find us on Instagram at Olson's Greenhouse Gardens, where you'll find inspiring photos to get you going on your flower gardening journey. You can also find a local retailer carrying plants from Olson's Greenhouse. That's ogg.com for Olson's Greenhouse Gardens, where you can dream big, dream bold, and dream in color with beautiful plants and flowers from Olson's Greenhouse.
My name is J.R. Bird. As mayor of Roosevelt, I increased transparency, led the charge to pass term limits, and kept taxes low. As your congressman, I will leverage my experience in the energy sector to champion energy independence and dominance. I'm determined to defend the unborn, secure our borders, uphold our Second Amendment rights, and bring the same level of transparency that we've upheld locally. I hope to earn your support.
Paid for by Bird for Congress.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Enjoy the 20th annual Soldier Hollow Sheet Dog Classic, presented by Purina Pro Plan and sponsored by Powder River and IFA Country Stores. Family fun not to miss. Visit SoldierHollowClassic.com.
The Good Feet store, the life you love, starts here.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, the prosecution's rest today in the trial of Chad Daybell. KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas tells us he expects the defense to take less than a week to present their case. Second, boating season is almost here. The Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation emphasizes life jacket knowledge before heading out on the water. Third, an emergency has been declared in Hawaii because of days of heavy rain slamming the islands. Right now it's 76 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As the 2024 presidential cycle continues to heat up, limp along, move forward towards that first Tuesday of November, there's one critical demographic that always seems to be talked about. It definitely will be a pivotal force this year, and that is young American voters. And often they're portrayed as ardent progressives. New poll offers much more nuance. So we always want to get past the headlines, get underneath. What is that actually telling us about this group? What actually matters to them and why? And that's the question we're going to get at in this segment. Christian Paz is a senior politics reporter at Vox. He covers the Democratic Party, the 2024 elections. He's based in Washington, D.C., and I love that he covers the political trends and issues, the movements that are changing America's political parties and ultimately our identity as a nation. And a really great piece talking about these young voters, what they actually care about underneath the headline stuff. And Christian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is a great piece at Vox, and obviously there were challenges with young people and President Biden long before anything happened on October 7th or the ongoing battle between Israel and Hamas. Give us some sense of kind of the under the surface stuff that you've been looking at and how that's going to impact what could shape up as a very close race on the first Tuesday of November.
Absolutely. It's always interesting to talk about younger voters because it tends to be a cohort of voters that we think about as a monolith sometimes. You know, a lot of the way that media covers younger voters too tends to be based off of what we're hearing from activists, especially young activists. And so we get an idea that they're particularly progressive, that they care about a variety of different issues than other Americans. And this poll that I wrote about was really interesting because it kind of challenges that assumption, specifically because yeah, it's true that younger voters have a diverse array of opinions and do differ a little than older generations on just how much they care about things. But what unites them all, and especially right now, what's uniting them is concerns about affordability, about inflation, about the economy, which kind of makes them kind of like other voters.
Yeah, I love that you point this out in your piece, that all of the mystery and the mystical things that a lot of political consultants try to conjure up when it comes to young voters, and as you described it, often turning them into a monolithic group, they actually look a lot like the rest of the voters when it comes right down to it. And so unpack that for us a little bit in terms of that affordability piece, particularly the economy and healthcare.
Yeah, those are the top three things that are chosen most frequently when you ask young voters. They care about, obviously, Israel-Palestine and a few other issues, as well. But the top issue far and away is lowering prices. That's what they mean when they talk about the economy. And it's interesting because that also tends to not be what they think President Biden is doing. And so when you add up those things, you get this picture of discontent with the status quo, dissatisfaction with Joe Biden because they don't think that he's doing enough to lower prices. And lowering prices tends to be much more of a concern than things like lowering interest rates or higher wages or more jobs. And when you think about the way that the president has been campaigning and talking about his record, the go-to thing has always been talking about low unemployment, talking about creating new jobs, talking about wage growth. But those, younger voters know that that's what Biden is prioritizing, but that's not necessarily what they want to see. And when you look, deeper into the results from this poll, it was really interesting to see that when you ask younger voters to place Donald Trump and Joe Biden on a trust scale, how much they trust which candidate to perform on specific issues, Joe Biden does well with young voters. He wins a majority of their trust on just about every issue except for lowering prices. And that's the issue where Donald Trump does the best. He doesn't do particularly well with any of the other issues, whether it's abortion rights, immigration, or climate change, but he does well with lowering prices.
Yeah, it's so interesting how that is playing out and being perceived. I also appreciated that you pointed out in your piece that the president seems to be talking a lot about some of the wins he's had from a policy standpoint as it relates to the economy. But we always frame it on this show that he's talking to those young voters like they're economists, not consumers. And it's the prices, as you pointed out, that's really the issue. And so as you look at how that plays out and throw in one more dynamic in there, obviously there's a lot of talk from the president in terms of student loan debt that a lot of young people are carrying. How is that playing out kind of underneath the numbers?
Yeah, so the numbers are interesting. When you ask voters to choose their top priorities, only about 39% of young voters select student loans as a top priority of theirs. That's compared to about 50% who say the same about Israel-Palestine and 73% who say that inflation. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the president's position on student loans is unpopular. When you ask voters about those issues and kind of ask them, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, who's closer to your position on this issue, most people are pretty positive about what the president has done on student loan forgiveness. They just don't think that that's the biggest concern. They just don't think, the other we can translate that is that it's not the issue that's driving them to vote. They're happy with what they've gotten, They don't necessarily want more or less. That's the other result from the poll. They're concerned about that affordability issue. And it kind of gets us to this broader topic, which is it's interesting that we always talk about, student loan forgiveness, climate change, gun control, some of these things that are much more kind of progressive priorities. This group of voters aren't necessarily very, very progressive. They still kind of skew toward the center. They do tend to have views that are a little bit more to the left, but that doesn't necessarily change their identity. When they look at Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they're kind of torn on what they want Joe Biden to do. You hear a lot of talk about, the president needs to go bigger on climate change, needs to go bigger on student loans. But it's kind of a wash there where you have kind of even groups of people who say that they like where he is right now, where they would wish for him to move to the right, or they would wish that he would move to the left. When they ask that of Donald Trump, there's a good chunk of people who say he should stay where he is, and then nearly the same number of people who say he should move to the left, that he's too conservative. So that kind of colors the candidate views right now.
This is fascinating. So this is really, really great work, and this is why we do the show, folks, because it's what's underneath those numbers. It's those nuanced pieces where the real information is that really makes a difference. Christian, thanks so much for joining us. Fantastic piece. You can check that out at Vox. Young voters are just like the rest of us. The mystery is gone. We've looked behind the curtain with Christian Paz today. Christian, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, great conversation there with Christian. And amazingly, young voters, if you look underneath the numbers, they actually look like most of the rest of the voters. And so how we talk about things, how we get to the issue, and the essence of the issue is how it really plays out. And that's what will actually matter before people pull a lever on the first Tuesday of November. We'll be right back.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour, law enforcement is finding more fentanyl or synthetic opioids on the streets in Utah. Department of Public Safety Captain Tanner Jensen says the price of the pills has dropped dramatically, leading to an oversupply.
The cheaper it is, the more individuals are purchasing it. Definitely adds to overdose issues.
The pills used to cost $15 each, but prices have dropped to $2 a piece. They're also more potent, making them more lethal. Jensen says they're fighting against the drugs by educating the public on the dangers and how to keep kids away from them. Our top national stories this hour from ABC News. Are tacos and burritos sandwiches? A judge in Indiana has weighed in. More from ABC's Jason Nathanson.
The restaurant Famous Taco in Fort Wayne, Indiana, wanted to open another location, so they picked a place in a shopping center, but zoning restrictions in the area only allowed restaurants that prepared, quote, made-to-order Subway-style sandwiches. The restrictions were challenged and went to court, where Allen County Judge Craig Bobay had his say, declaring that tacos and burritos are indeed, quote, Mexican-style sandwiches. And the zoning restrictions couldn't favor only American-style cuisine. If a Greek gyro place or a Vietnamese banh mi shop wanted to open, that would also be allowed. Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Los Angeles.
The U.S. military has finished installing a temporary floating pier in Gaza. The Pentagon's Sabrina Singh called an international effort, with aid starting to flow in the coming days.
Aid will be offloaded from the ships at a floating roll-on, roll-off distribution facility, ferried to this Trident pier, and then driven to the shore in Gaza, where USAID and the UN will manage the distribution.
The pier is designed to get critical humanitarian supplies and other aid to Israel-Hamas conflict victims. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 38 points, the S&P has lost 11, the NASDAQ is also down 44 points. Coming up, we'll take a look at this weekend's forecast. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly. completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. I want to tell you about our famous "You Don't Need a Warranty" warranty. That's right. It's a warranty you don't need, but we give it to you anyway. Let me explain. Most warranty problems for siding, gutters, and windows are caused by not installing stuff right in the first place. If you rush the work, cut corners, or use subpar materials, you're just begging for problems later. At RGS Exteriors, we don't tolerate careless workmanship. We slow down, focus on every detail, and use only the best materials. We prevent warranty work by doing the job right in the first place. That's why the 10-year everything guarantee we give you is also known as our "You Don't Need a Warranty" warranty. We absolutely will be there if you need to use it. But honestly, you probably will never have to. Done right the first time. That's the RGS way. For siding, gutters, and windows, call 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsexteriors.com.
Law & Order Thursday saves the best for last with a night of can't-miss finales on NBC. First on Law & Order, District Attorney Baxter's re-election campaign is on the line after a case hits close to home. Then on SVU, can Benson stop a serial predator before he strikes again? And on Organized Crime, Stabler faces an impossible choice between family and duty. The Law & Order Thursday season finale event, tonight on NBC.
Then stay tuned for KSL 5 News at 10.
Tonight on KSL, they're all over store shelves, contraptions that claim to help food last longer in your fridge. But do they do any good? KSL's Matt Gephardt puts them to the test, armed with a variety of food-saving bins filled with produce and left in the refrigerator for weeks. What went rotten? What stayed fresh? And which of these things actually help stretch our food budgets? It's an inflation-busting investigation you won't want to miss. Keeping it fresh, tonight at 10 on KSL.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Stephanie Palmer at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email spalmer@ksl.com. That's spalmer@ksl.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
Once again, we are back to a crash-free commute on your Valley freeways, and eastbound SR 201 is open to all traffic once again in all lanes at Bangalore Highway. But we do have traffic already getting busy and a little slow southbound I-15 at the South Interchange in Murray. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, if you're heading outside this weekend, it's going to be really nice. Starting today, we'll get up to 80 degrees. Tomorrow, 82. Some clouds will roll in, a few breezes, but we're still not getting below 75 until Monday. Right now, it's 76 degrees and sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is definitely time to think again about what we think we know, especially when it comes to what gets served up to us, either through social media or even just through whatever is in your feed today. And when you look at things like the heated debates we've had surrounding the campus protests, that's clearly captivated the nation's attention. And while the images of disruptive demonstrations flood the social media space, recent polls offer a much more, under the headline, think again, nuanced perspective on where students and the broader public actually stand. And we're going to dive into that in a deep way. Always a good day to have Samuel Abrams on the program with us, professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And Sam, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Wonderful piece at Deseret.com, as always. And I love this idea of getting underneath the headlines. As you point out in your piece, if you just look at the headlines and the social media clips, the whole nation is burning down. Every college campus is a mess, and every college student is part of the problem.
So we've talked about this sort of stuff now for a while. And over the last year or two, I've been trying to make the argument that, our younger students are actually people that make me optimistic. When we talk to them, we realize that they tend to be fairly balanced. They are fairly open-minded. They're there to learn. They're there to meet new people. I've seen this all over Utah when I've had the pleasure of visiting, and I see it here on the East Coast as well. Now, if you look at the fog that, has engulfed our colleges and universities over the last couple of months, it sure looked like this was wrong, like really, really wrong. And I said, wait a minute. My job as an academic is to say, slow down, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And we now have our data, and the data is pretty cool because the data shows that 8%, under 10% of students were actually involved in this. And that goes to your opening, which is the social media world is completely distorting reality once again.
Yeah. So let's dig into some of those other numbers that to me were just stunning. To think about in terms of what was actually going on, what the mood, what the sentiment is for a lot of those on campus and really broader community as well.
So the numbers are very, very encouraging again. And one thing that I'd love to convey to your listeners and readers and so on is it's very scary when a mob comes after you. I think I've talked about the fact that it's happened to me on a number of occasions. When it first happened, you go, oh my goodness, are they going to label me forever as a person who's committed some crime, some thought crime, some actual crime? It's scary as it can be. Students are absolutely afraid of it. So they again sort of hide and follow the group, but it doesn't mean it's what they believe in. And when we look at what they believe in, they are far more supportive of Israel than it appears. And they really reject the tactics. They reject having their lives interrupted. They are not happy with being told they can't enter certain places on college and university campuses. And the data show once again that they're there to learn, not to protest.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. And you do such an extraordinary job of this to make sure we're having the and conversation of, yes, we can have free speech, and yes, we can protest. Those are all things that are good and should be done. I've been a fan of former Senator Ben Sasse, who's now the president of the University of Florida, who goes out and greets wherever the protesters are going to be on a given day. And then, of course, reminding them that there's no camping on campus, and whether it's the football team or the band or the debate, and has had this relationship of, we'll always protect your right to protest or to give voice. And we also have a set of standards and rules in terms of time, place, and manner, and that you can actually have a balance in all of those things.
Exactly right. And he has been a model for the nation. And it's exactly the point that we need to remember, which is you have a right to protest. And you can even say things that many of us find objectionable, offensive, or troubling, as long as it's not instigating actual violence. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know any school that allows you to create an encampment and pitch tents, period, without consequence. Fortunately, Florida's handled this very well. What's really been very disappointing for me is watching places like Harvard and Northwestern capitulate to the mobs. Harvard, for instance, just rolled everything back and said, we're going to rethink your suspensions. We're not going to enforce this. And what that's saying to most students, and I've been flooded with texts, calls, emails, and so on over the last couple of days, is they're saying, this isn't fair. This isn't how the world works. Rules are supposed to be applied neutrally and to everybody. And suddenly what the students are seeing is rules don't matter. You can protest, you can threaten, you can cross every line, and there's just no consequence. That's a real danger for our civic sphere.
That is such a crucial thing. We often point that out as the absolute predictability of consequences. And it should be one of the main things. Hopefully our kids are learning that before they get on a college campus. But now it seems we're losing a little bit of that as well. But there's always that absolute predictability of consequences. And if everything's the exception or everyone's afraid, like you pointed out, then our ability to have that connective tissue as a society gets undermined.
No, exactly right. I mean, I hopefully have taught this to my 5-year-old, and he tells our 3-year-old there are consequences. Natalie, that's my daughter's name. There are consequences, and I love that he knows that. At 5, he knows that. For some reason, our college kids at Harvard do not understand this basic lesson. And again, when we do not have small groups anymore and we have big, complex society, they function because rules matter and rules need to be enforced, and that's just not happening. And it's a bad lesson across the board.
Yeah, we have to get back to compassion and rule of law are compatible principles. I think that's a good place to start with that and conversation. Give us just a little more of those numbers and underneath the numbers that you saw from the data in terms of where are those college students, really the vast majority of them, how are they really seeing all of this play out?
So, if we look at the numbers and they're in there, 90% believe that blocking pro-Israel students from parts of campus is unacceptable. I mean, that's very scary. Imagine anywhere as a student, it doesn't matter what you believe in, what color you are, the idea that you can't walk freely on campus, that's unheard of. And that looks like Nazi Germany, Austria, all those places in the 1930s. It's very, very troubling. And I'm shocked that any college or university would have allowed it to have developed. They disagree, a majority in opposition to these tactics, and 67% say that occupying campus buildings are unacceptable. Another majority, 58%, say that it's unacceptable to refuse a university's order to disperse. So you have this small minority that's incredibly well organized. It's making a lot of noise on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, what have you. And, that is just not where most students are. And the adults in the room, although I wonder how many adults are in the room at Harvard, need to say enough of this. And we need to demand better.
Yeah, we have to demand better. We have to expect more. That's part of this whole process of what should happen on a college campus and in a classroom and on the quad. Those are all things where we can actually apply these particular principles. Give us one last thought as you've been watching this play out, as you've had so many people reaching out to you for insight in terms of what are we seeing really and where are we really going. What's the one thing we all ought to be thinking a little different about today?
The great middle needs to speak up. This country, and there's data in the article, this country is still populated, and we see it in Utah, and that's one of my favorite reasons for why I love to visit Utah, of normal, thoughtful people. I actually wrote another piece about central Pennsylvania, and the same thing emerged very quickly, which is normal people who understand that there are trade-offs in life. But our politics are polarized. Our politics are extreme right now. The people in the middle need to speak up. They need to vote. They need to demand better because we're being pulled in such extremes that we're going to break. And we're not there yet, but we could. And we need to have people outside of the university level, especially for state schools, say, this isn't right. We need to stop this and put leaders in place that can do that. And they're certainly doing it in Florida. Notice we didn't have a whole lot of trouble in Utah. We're not having a lot of trouble in North Carolina. And when there was a little bit, the leaders took control and made very clear statements at UNC and a few other places. The public should be saying, we need those sorts of leaders. We need them to make it clear what we are as Americans and what we believe in to promote civil society. And the great middle, which often is quiet, cannot be quiet now. We have to speak.
Yeah, nothing more important. I'm just going to shout a big amen. The middle, the center left to center right, that is not the loud and angry on the far left or the far right. I'm just going to remind you all, you are the majority. You are the majority. It's time to act like it, to speak like it, and to invite everyone to come along to a different kind of conversation. Samuel Abrams, professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Great piece at Deseret.com as well. And as always, Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Great perspective, as always, from Sam Abrams. And that's, again, under the numbers. If you just were looking at your social media feed over the last few weeks and month, you would think that every college student on the planet is in revolt and is buying in lock, stock, and barrel to the narrative that's being served up, and it's just not reality. There is a very large middle, and they're quiet, and we can't be quiet anymore. Now, it doesn't mean we need to yell and scream, but it does mean we need to show up. It does mean we have to stand up, and sometimes that does even require us to stand alone. but to do it with dignity and grace, to link arms with like-minded people, to understand and explore the integrity of compromise. That's how we move this all forward. But if we allow the narrative of the loud and the angry to always dominate, that keeps the status quo the status quo. That keeps those with the power with the power. And that power isn't helping us move society forward. And it is that interconnectedness that we have to get back to. And you don't get that in just a yelling and screaming of pejorative match. You have to have a serious conversation about principles that lead to good policy, that lead to good governing, that lead to strong societies and communities, and a much better country for all of us. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Coming up with some final thoughts here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation and a regular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduce stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. It may increase your stroke risk. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. Medications such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Join the KSL Greenhouse Show Saturday from 8 to 11 at the Conservation Garden Park's Open House in West Jordan. That's the Conservation Garden Park Open House in West Jordan.
It's Dino Day at all Sinclair locations Saturday, June 1st. Fuel up, saving up to 30 cents per gallon on Sinclair's top-tier premium fuel with Dino Pay. Come early and grab some Dino swag. Remember, Saturday, June 1st at all Sinclair locations.
Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top-tier gasoline for a cleaner engine. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green Dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show, and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
An emergency can happen any second. Here's a few seconds to think about where you'd go. When you need medical care fast, the closest emergency room is a smart thing to know. Common Spirit Health ERs are your direct path between feeling scared or uncomfortable and feeling better. Find emergency care in your neighborhood at mountain.commonspirit.org.
Listen up, guys. Hot Tub Factory Outlet is having our biggest parking lot sale ever. And we have more inventory than you can imagine. You won't want to miss this one. Save 20, 30, 40% off on our Sundance hot tubs and swim spas. We have hot tubs starting as low as $49.95. Hot tubs starting as low as $49.95. Are you ready to save big? For limited time only, save thousands of dollars on any of our luxurious hot tubs, saunas, and cold plunges. Don't let this opportunity slip away. away. Our unbeatable prices won't last long. Buy local and you'll experience the magic of having an in-house service technician at your beck and call. Make sure you visit the Hot Tub Factory Outlet parking lot sale first before you consider buying anywhere else. Your ultimate relaxation oasis awaits. This incredible offer is only available while supplies last. Join us at Hot Tub Factory Outlet, conveniently located next to Cowabunga Bay. Hot Tub Factory Outlet, open Friday and Saturday till 7, Sunday till 4. See you soon.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With Boyd Matheson. Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know, but most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, law enforcement is finding more fentanyl or synthetic opioids on the streets in Utah now that prices have dropped. Second, are tacos and burritos sandwiches? A judge in Indiana says yes after allowing them in a sandwich-only restaurant zone. Third, the U.S. military has finished installing a temporary floating pier in Gaza to help bring aid and supplies. Right now it's 76 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today, as it always is. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, if you missed anything over the last 2 hours, just go to the KSLpodcast.com. You can go right to Inside Sources, and every single one of our segments we do is a little mini podcast, or you can listen to the entire show. And one of those you're going to want to go back to was our last segment with Sam Abrams, who's a professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College. He's also a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And he is one of those that whenever we have Sam on the show, I always go back and re-listen to the podcast because he always has something in there that surprises me. He is always getting me to say, wow, I'd never thought of it that way before, or I need to think again about what I think I know. And that's good for all of us. And so often the podcasts are a great way to do that. Just go back and maybe re-listen. Maybe you were a little distracted, or maybe there was that one line you wanted to make sure you got so you could share it with somebody at work or somebody at home. And so go to KSLpodcast.com and check those out. We post them every afternoon after the show. And I want to go to this conversation with Sam Abrams because we have been watching over the last month or so all of the protests that have taken place on campus. We've seen the good, bad, and the ugly of all of that. And sadly, if you were simply going through your social media scroll, and if you had clicked on a couple of those maybe more violent images or more raucous moments, you'd get served up more of that until you might think that's what's happening on every college campus and that every college student is in agreement and in lockstep in following that path. And it's why we always have to slow down. Instant certainty is the enemy of truth. Instant certainty undermines trust and confidence. And when it comes to what we've seen on college campuses, there was so much instant certainty about what this meant, what it meant to the Biden administration, what it meant to Israel, what it meant to the Middle East, what it meant to our bigger geopolitics. And now, if we slow down, which is rule number 1, 2, and 3, slow down, take a breath, step back, look at it different. Now we have some data. Now we have some data that we can say, okay, what's really going on? And what is really happening on college campuses? And what are the students really saying? What are they really doing? And the numbers show that less than 8% of college students were participating in those protests. Less than 8%. That's a pretty small number. And then you can break down who agreed with what. 80% of Americans have continued to support Israel over Hamas. Again, nuanced piece to get to in terms of the Palestinian people. We'll come back to that. Voters also understand that about 67% who believe that Israel is trying to avoid civilian casualties in the war against Hamas. Again, interesting debate in terms of what the administration is saying and doing and whether Israel is doing enough to avoid innocent civilian casualties. 78% of college students believe that when this war is over, this conflict is over, Hamas needs to be removed from running Gaza. And so you just look at some of the numbers underneath and like, wait a minute, that actually sounds like where most of the American people are. And if you missed our earlier conversation with Christian Paz from Vox, he was talking about younger voters in general. And every political consultant, well, not every, a lot of the political consultants I know have turned young voters into this magical, mystical group of unicorns that you just corral them and you're going to win an election by a landslide. But they're magical and they're mystical and you have to go at it in a really weird and unique way. Well, the reality underneath that is that younger voters are worried about the exact same issues. Younger voters, all the polling shows that what they're really worried about is prices. Prices for homes, prices for insurance, health insurance in particular, prices at the grocery store, prices at the gas pump. They're worried about all of those things. And it mirrors the rest of society. And so often in our desire to divide and label and put in a box, we often stop listening to each other. We often stop questioning each other. We start treating each other as groups, as monolithic groups. And that's just not the way we function as human beings. So in order to get out of the boxes and the perceptions and the instant certainty and judgment, you actually have to step back and you have to ask better questions and you have to be willing to listen to the response. And that's the key. When we listen better, when we ask better questions, we actually have an opportunity to get to better solutions together. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I am Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us today. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. It's 77 degrees, KSL's top story. 6 weeks after they started, the prosecution has rested its case against Chad Daybell. At this moment, up in Idaho, lawyers are just finishing wrangling over what comes next. We have team coverage, and we begin with KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera, who's listening in on the court hearing right now. Eric?
Jeff, as we speak, the prosecutors are arguing their side of what they called a clerical error on the indictment for the murder of J.J. Vallow. So far, they've offered 3 options, but all of them citing previous cases and pointing to Idaho law that a correction can be made. As far as Daybell's defense asking for a directed verdict on the murder charges of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow, Judge Stephen Boyce found that all charges had sufficient evidence to deny the defense's request to dismiss. I also wanted